Apparently, Joe Rogan doesn't let a week go by without meddling in things that don't concern him, but if you keep giving it out, you should be ready to get it back, and many famous people have been happy to beat the guy at his own game over the years. So in today's video, let's take a look at the celebs who made their feelings clear about him. First off, we've got Carlos Mencia's claims Joe Rogan sabotaged his career. It's one of the most well-known things that ever happened at the Comedy Store. So in 2007, Joe Rogan embarrassed fellow comedian Carlos Mencia by calling him a plagiarist on stage in Los Angeles. He then posted a video of the argument online along with clips of the Honduras-born comedian telling a certain joke and other comedians similarly telling the same joke. According to Mencia, Comedy Central had told him not to answer the accusations at the time, but he's talked about it more than once since then. In 2011, the comedian said that he'd gone to therapy to deal with the damage to his career. 8 years later, on the Check It Out podcast, he explained why he hadn't gotten in touch with Rogan since the incident. He went on and said that at the time, he had no idea what to do when someone randomly decided to accuse him of stealing jokes and ruining his career. And understandably so, it seems like the guy still holds a grudge, but he mentioned on his podcast that there are no hard feelings from his side. Up next, Trisha Paytas accused Joe Rogan of body shaming. The comedian was accused of sexism in 2021 when he said something mean about a popular online personality. This wasn't the first time, and it almost certainly won't be the last time. In 2021, Ali Makovsky was a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience where she mentioned that she joined Trisha Paytas' OnlyFans account. After asking for a picture of the star without clothes, the host looked at a picture of her in a bikini and said, "Yeah, you can keep that." As you might guess, Paytas wasn't going to let this slide. After being told about the comment, the YouTuber posted an 8-minute video called Dear Joe Rogan to their channel, where she talked directly to him saying, "Not every woman is here to be a pleasure for your eyeballs." Whoa, the woman did not go slow on him. Moving on to Stephen A. Smith felt patronized by Joe Rogan. Alongside the trillions of his unwanted opinions, the comic likes to talk about more than just the men in the ring. In 2020, Rogan called out ESPN's Stephen A. Smith for saying that Donald Cerrone had pretty much given up when he lost to Conor McGregor in the first round. He told his listeners that it was a bad look for everyone involved in the sport and that this could easily be done by someone who knows how to play. And although he mentioned somewhere in between that Smith was a natural performer, he also said that his style didn't belong in MMA. But he wasn't happy about this. He told Rogan in a video that was posted on Twitter that although he had every right to express his thoughts on this, if he wanted to talk about him, then he was going to have to meet him separately. Now for Alyssa Milano is baffled by Joe Rogan's popularity. When she logged into Twitter one day in July 2020, she seemed to be in a mood to vent. In a series of tweets, the charmed actress took an aim at everything from Donald Trump to Instagram trends to the name of the Washington Redskins, but the most interesting thing was the way she talked about a certain comedian. The fact that Rogan had 3 times the listeners as hers seemed crazy to her. But not everyone had the same opinion on this. Some people said that the Joe Rogan Experience covers a wider range of topics than her socially conscious Sorry Not Sorry, and others said that she had overestimated how many people listened to her. Rogan didn't answer for a few weeks, but when he did, he made sure to stick the knife in. When comedian Tim Dillon and the host of his podcast talked about political commentary, the host said he was looking forward to the former actress's tweets in November. He also said that it seemed as if she decided to become an activist as soon as her acting career ended. Not to mention, Prince Harry tells Joe to stay out of COVID-19 talk. This guy even upset a member of the royal family in 2021 when he spoke out about the COVID-19 vaccine. Has he left anyone out? On his self-titled podcast, the host said something controversial and wrong that healthy young adults didn't need to get vaccinated because they were safe if they didn't. This was during a pandemic that had already killed millions of people all over the world. And even though it's unlikely that anyone would take medical advice from a man who was once best known for telling game show contestants to eat blended rodents, Rogan still got a lot of backlash for his comments, and without a doubt, Prince Harry was the most well-known person to speak out. Yes, when he was on Dax Shepard's podcast Armchair Expert, the Duke of Sussex called out the comedian for spreading false information. He even told him that with a platform comes great responsibility, and he'd always be careful of what he says. Coming up, Don Lemon blasted Joe Rogan's claims about cancel culture. In 2021, when he said that the woke movement could silence straight white men, people laughed at him, and rightly so. On his podcast, which 11 million people listen to every week, Rogan was called out by several people. This also included Don Lemon, who told viewers of his creatively named CNN show, Don Lemon Tonight, that people are generally now aware of cancel cancel culture and wokeness. There are questions about what each term even means and what happens if it goes too far, but pointing out how other people are oppressed, treated unfairly, or are different does not make anyone else quiet. Lemon, who co-hosts his podcast, The Handoff, with his colleague Chris Cuomo, then added that Rogan is part of the conversation and that no one is keeping him or any other straight white men from speaking out. Following that, Fallon Fox called out Joe Rogan's transphobia. There's no love lost between this guy and MMA fighter Fallon Fox, who's transgender. The first time they fought was in 2013 when one of them spoke out against the other's fighting license on his podcast. He said she really isn't a she and that she's just had surgery to change her gender, but Fox soon fought back. In a piece for Bloody Elbow, he drew parallels between Rogan's comments and the racism that one baseball legend faced in the early 1940s. That was savage. Fox got mad at Rogan again in 2021 when he said in an odd podcast that generally dumb people now have a simpler way to improve their reputation: they can change gender. In response, the former featherweight wrote on Twitter that he should be canceled by Spotify considering the insane amount of transphobic comments he's made. It's baffling to know that a streaming service pays him $100 million to talk about anything he wants. Let's not forget to talk about John Oliver agreeing that he is a Prince Harry wasn't the only famous person to tell Joe Rogan he was wrong about the COVID-19 vaccine and how dangerous it was. John Oliver ripped into the podcaster on his HBO show Last Week Tonight, the same week he criticized Tucker Carlson for doing something similar. The Brit said in response to Rogan's claim that you might not get sick at all or seriously from COVID, but you'd still accidentally give it to someone who would then die from it. And before anyone says that only vulnerable people should get vaccinated, you'd know that vaccines are only 95% effective, so there's no way of saying for sure that they'll be fine. He concluded by saying that people should stop saying whatever the guy says since he's a f***ing moron. If you're wondering what the last line is about, it's because Rogan did, in fact, call himself the same thing after his comments about vaccinations caused a backlash. In a very rare act of self-awareness, the Joe Rogan Experience, the provocateur also said that even he doesn't trust himself as a source of information. Next, Steve Albini described Joe Rogan as trash garbage. Albini probably won't show up on the Joe Rogan Experience anytime soon. In an interview with Eugene Robinson for the Oxbow, Frontman's newsletter in 2021, the music producer insulted the podcast host and other anti-woke comedians. You'd say trash garbage was one of the more polite ways he described people like Rogan. According to him, it felt as if the podcaster found his place to vent out all the rude and offensive things he had to say about people. Being best known for his work on the last album by Nirvana, Albini also took a shot at Vice when he called them a, quote, parade of gawkers reveling in whatever misery they can observe from an ironic distance. Lastly, Chelsea Peretti confronted Joe Rogan about sexist behavior. In 2011, Joey Diaz, a regular guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, made a joke about getting sexual favors from female comedians in exchange for stage time at the Comedy Store's The Belly Room. This was a clear example of how his podcast was a boys' club. You should also note that the host seemed to think this was hysterically funny, but it's safe to say Peretti did not. After the clip resurfaced in 2020, the former Brooklyn Nine-Nine star blasted sexism in the comedy world on Twitter. She put up that if he has such a big platform, he should call out other men when they say hateful things about women instead of going on racist and sexist podcasts. And if he's got nothing better to say, he should stay quiet. And it gets worse from here. Apparently, Diaz and Rogan didn't apologize for their bad jokes. Instead, they added fuel to the fire. The former tweeted a link to a video called Joey Diaz Sleeps with a One-Legged Woman, and the latter then retweeted it. That's a bit too much, don't you guys think? And on that note, that's a wrap for this video, my friends. What did you think about all these celebs who can't stand Joe Rogan? Let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.